Good afternoon. You join me on take 2 actually. So if I'm looking a little bit sad and angry, it's because I'm having to do this again because I forgot to put my microphone off mute. So here we go. This is the second bit now. And what we're going to be looking at this time, this is the improvers. We're going to be looking at the if, and, or functions, some if, average ifs, and some other stuff as well as we go along. So hopefully that will be all right. Let's just recap the if function then. So the if looks at a certain criteria and decides whether something is true or whether it's false, and we can decide what we want to put in if it's true or if it's false. So for example, at the moment we've got this in cell A1 and it's a figure of 99, but let's say we had a budget of over £100. Would this be under budget or over budget? Well, our answer is it's under budget, and it's under budget because we've put an if function into this cell to say what it is. And if we just look at the logical test, and we'll break this formula down. So if, open brackets, A1 is greater than 100, and that's a logical test. Well, if it's greater than 100, comma, what do we want it to be? Well, the value, if it's true, is we want to put over budget. And we need to put these into exclamation marks or into speech quotation marks. The only ones that we don't need to put into quotation marks are true and false and numbers. But anything written like this, we want it to be there. And then if it's false, we want it to be under budget. So now if I click here and then went to 101, this would now change to over budget. Let's have a look at here. We can have a practice where we want to know if these cells are less than 40, and if they're less than 40, we want to say it's true. If it's over 40, then it's false. So we just say equals if, open brackets, the logical test is this cell is less than 40, comma, what's the value if that is true? We're going to say that's true, and if it's false, we're going to say it's false. Close brackets, and you can see it's returned a figure of true because it is less than 40, and we can just autofill that down, and likewise 56 is greater than 40, so therefore it's false. We could do whatever we wanted to do really. For example, here we've got some cells, we've got apples, bananas and grapes, and we want to return a value that if it's grapes, it's correct. If it's not grapes, it's not correct. And there's a formula that you can put in. So rather than do that, you can have a go at that one here. This is probably a little bit more realistic. So what we're going to look at in this cell, we're going to say we've got some car sales, and do they meet our target revenue? Our target revenue is £5,000. And if they meet or exceed that, then it's within, it'll be met. And if it's less than that, it's not met. And we need to make sure that we make this cell an absolute cell reference. So this is equals if this cell here, C30, is greater than or equal to this cell, D27, and we're going to make D27 an absolute cell reference. Well, what's the value if that is true? Well, it's met. And if it's false, it's not met. Close brackets, and we can see that it's not met. We just double click and autofill that down. If we change this to 5,000, we can see now that it's met. And we've got a practice one over here for you. And you could, if you want to, put conditional formatting on this to make it stand out a little bit more. You can use nested if functions. So for example, you could have up to 64 nested if functions, but that would just make it far too complicated. So in this example here, check if the score is excellent, if it's greater than or equal to 90. If it's good, it's greater than or equal to 75, or it needs improvement. And we've got the formula here. So in this one, check if the age of a child is, if it's below 13, they're a child, below 20, they're a teen, or below or over that, anything else for an adult. So this equals if. Well, the logical test is if this cell is less than 13. What's the value of that? Well, the value of that, if it's true, is there a child? Close question mark, close quotation marks. And what's the value of that if it's false? Well, if it's false, it's if. The logical test is if this cell, B3 again, is less than 20, then they will be, the value of that is it's true, it's a teen. And if it's false, then they would be an adult, and that needs to be in quotation marks. Close brackets. And then I think I need another close brackets on there. Press enter, and there we go. So 20, they're an adult. If I put in here 15, we can see they change to teen. And if I put in there 12, we can see they change to a child. And there's all these others that you can have a look at. And the formulas are there for you. I'm just going to make sure that this is actually. We're now going to look at the if, and or function. So the top one is a simple if function, and you can see that if you've got over 70 or more, it's going to be a pass. If you've got below that, then it's a fail. So you can practice on this, and the equations or the formulas functions are there, and you can have a practice on that one there. Let's have a look now then if the if and the and function are combine them both. Imagine we've got two exams and we want them to get over 70 on each particular exam. So we're going to combine the if and function here. So equals if, open brackets, and, open brackets again. And you can see it's now got logical 1, logical 2. So logical 1 is if this cell, B48, is greater than or equal to 70. That's the first logical test. Logical test 2 is if this cell is greater than or equal to 70. Close brackets, comma. Well, what's the value if that's true? Well, then it's a pass. And if it's false, then it's a fail. Close brackets. And there we go. So we've got a pass there. If I was to change any one of these to 69, this would then change to a fail. So we can see that you've got to get over both of 70 to get the pass for that. And so that's using the if and the and function. And there is the table filled out properly with the equations. And then there's a formula for you to see there. And a practice one for you to do there. We're going to use the if and example here again by looking at the sales and deadline. So we've got a deadline in less than 7 days or less, and a sales target. So if they have managed to do that, these salespeople, Phil, Joe, Anne and Mary, then the target is hit or the target is not hit. So here we go. Let's have a look in here. Equals if, open brackets, and, okay, close open brackets. The logical test one is if this cell is less than or equal to, is less than or equal to this cell, and I'm going to turn this into an absolute cell reference. That's logical 1. Or logical 2 is this cell is greater than or equal to the sales target, and I'm going to turn that into an absolute cell reference. Comma, well, what's the value of that if it's true? Target met. And if they've not met it, is the target not hit or met or whatever you wanted to put in there. Close brackets. And there we go. So the target is met. Likewise, if I change this to 8 days, the target is not met. If I go back to 7, or likewise, if this goes to 650, the target is not hit. So you can see that we're making 2 criteria there. And there's a practice one that you can use there. This one, we're going to use the if and or function here. We've got these yields, how much that they have made. Let's just put 56 in there. How many tons that they have made on their fields in each particular month for this farm, and we want to know if there's any that have got any low yields. So anyone that's got below 35 tons, we want to say that that's a low yield or a normal yield. So we're going to use equals if or. So now we've got logical test 1. This cell is less than 35, comma, this cell is less than 35, D104 less than 35, and DE104 less than 35. Close brackets, comma. Now what's the value of that if it's true? Well, if it's true, they've got a low yield. ELD. And if it's false, if they're above 35, then it's got a normal yield. Close brackets, and then press enter. And there we go. We can see that's a low yield because we've got one that's got 34 there. If I move that to 35, it now changes it to a normal yield. So we can see the if and or function. And there's a practice one that you can use here. Now we're going to combine them and put the if and an or function. Imagine that we've got these two examples, and rather than giving them a blanket fail if they get below 70 on either of them, what if we said, well, you can have a pass if you've got above 70 on both of them. If you've got 70 on one and below 70 on another, you've got a partial pass. But if you've got below 70 on either of them, you've got a fail. So let's build that up here. So we're going to say equals if, and the logical test is if this cell is greater than or equal to 70, this cell is greater than or equal to 70, comma, the value of that if it's true is it's a pass. Okay. Now what's the value of that if it is false? Well, if it's false, we're going to use another if function. If and or. The logical test is if this cell, B141, is greater than or equal to 70. The next one, and I can't see it, but I know it's C141, C141, greater than or equal to 70. The value of that, if it's true, is a partial pass. And the value of that, if it's false, is a fail because it's false on both of them. Close brackets. Oh, it's accepting them because I didn't put an extra one there. So we can see that it's 70 is a pass, but if I move that to a 69, this now should move to a partial pass. There we go. If I put that to 69, it would then go to a fail. So you can see how you can combine the different functions. It's quite complex, but hopefully you've got an idea of that. Let's now look at the SUMIF and average if functions. So the SUMIF allows us to sum a range of data if it meets a certain criteria. So for example, we've got this data here, and we only want to know if it's above 345 or equal to 345. Likewise, if the average if as well. And you might want to do that so that you can avoid any low numbers, because if you use an average, it would skew the figures completely. So to do that, we're just going to type equals SUMIF, open brackets, the range is there, comma, and the criteria that we're bothered about, and we're going to put this in quotation marks, is greater than or equal to 345, close, speech marks, close parentheses, press enter, and it comes up there. Again, we could use average if equals average if, open brackets, the range, comma, the criteria is greater than or equal to 345, close brackets, and then it's brought 745. Okay, you could, if you wanted to, use the fx function here. So we'll just give a demonstration of using the SUMIF function using that. So I'll go to the fx function. If SUMIF wasn't already here, I could just type in SUMIF, press enter. It comes up, double click that. And now I've got the range. Well, the range is there. The criteria is greater than or equal to 3, 4, 5. And you notice that I don't put any speech marks here because Excel will put them in for me myself, and it comes up with the figure. If I go back to my formula, you can see it's put, or the function formula bar, you can see that it's put the quotation marks in for me there. Let's have a look now at SUMIF. So SUMIF we're going to use if we've got multiple criteria. So for example, we've got some Mercedes, we've got some inventories, we've got some E-class, A-class, and M-class, and S-class, different years, different models, and different prices and stuff like that. And we're going to use the SUMIF function to total the number of A-class for the all model years. So I'm going to equals SUMIFs, open brackets, and the sum range, well, the sum range is this here, comma. The criteria range, what do I want? Well, I want the A-class, so I want to be over here, comma. And what's the criteria? Well, the criteria is A-class. And because it's all model years, I don't need another criteria. Press enter, and we can see I come up with my value there. If you did want to check your answer, you could simply move that out of the way, click in the cell, and it would give you the formula there, the function there. Here we're going to use two different criteria. We've got the A-class, and we've got the 2022 model. So we're going to go equals SUMIFs. The sum range, again, is this, comma, criteria 1, comma, the criteria range, sorry, and then the criteria, well, we want the A-class, comma, criteria range 2, well, this is highlighted there, comma, and the model year is 2022, close brackets, and there we go. We've got the value there for the A-class, the 2022 models. I'm not going to do the last one. Average if works exactly the same. So equals average ifs. The average range, that's the range that we want to average. Criteria 1. And we're looking for M-class. And we're looking for all model years, so we close brackets. This one, it's two different criteria, so this equals average ifs. Average range is that. The criteria range is the class, and we're looking for the S-class, so it doesn't matter which one we choose. Criteria range 2, we're looking for the 2022, close brackets, and now it's come up with the averages for that. Next one is count if, so we're looking to count the number of A-class that we've got for 2022 models there. So we're going to use the count if function, which is slightly different, equals count ifs. The criteria range, well, that's the class. And what criteria are we after? Well, we're looking for the 2000, we're looking for the A-class. Okay, come. And our next criteria is the 2022. 2022, close brackets. And we can see that we've got 3 that meet that. And you can have a go at the rest of these, should you wish. And there's some different exercises there for you to have a go at. We've got some SUMIF practice sheets here. So this is for the tonnage, and I'm just going to go through this one. Now this is using SUMIF. So then again, equals SUMIF. open bracket, and the range, what we're looking for, well, the range is this here. The criteria we're looking for is tungsten. And what's the sum range? What are we looking to get the sum range up there? We're looking for this there. Now, because we're going to fill these in for the other ones, we'll need to change these into absolute cell references. But we're not going to use the center one, the criteria range, because that will change as we move down. So now when I autofill there, we can see that it fills in correctly, and we can see that these have stayed in place, but the metal has gone down because we didn't put the center of the criteria as an absolute cell reference. And then what we've got is we've got some SUMIF and IFs practice sheets, practice questions that you can do there. If sheet there that you can use, and some practice questions there that you can use. And we're going to look at the computer shop inventory and sales inventory at another time. I'll make another video for that. Okay.